I gave her everything I had and everything I didn't have. When I came out of prison 18 months later, she was someone else's wife, and my furniture was gone. She never told me to steal. She just told me what she wanted and kept telling me until I found a way. That way cost me everything. It cost her nothing. The first thing I did when I walked out of that prison gate was go home. I knocked on my own door. A stranger opened it. That was when I understood exactly what she had done.
Some love stories do not end with a goodbye. They end with a stranger at your door and an empty room behind them. This is the story of Gabriel Okoye, a man who loved a woman completely, quietly, and without condition. A man who was dismantled so slowly and so carefully that by the time he understood what was happening, there was nothing left to save.
Before we go any further, if you are not subscribed yet, do it now. This is not the kind of story you want to miss the ending of. Welcome to Life Stories with the Innocent, where every story we tell is one that will stay with you.
Gabriel Okoye was 31 years old when his life made sense. He had a flat in East London and a position at a financial services firm that had taken him 6 years to reach. Not the top, but solid, respectable. He was a building man, the kind of man who looks at what he has and sees what it could become if he is patient enough and disciplined enough and willing enough to wait. He was all of those things until Simone. He met her in the autumn of 2018. She was British Nigerian, ambitious, polished. She had plans for her life that were bigger than her current circumstances, and she was not ashamed of that. Gabriel found that attractive. He did not yet understand that her plans had a role written in them for him that she had not shared, and in the beginning, it was real. Simone laughed at things that were actually funny. She remembered small things Gabriel told her. She made him feel seen in the specific way that only happens when someone is paying attention. That part was not a performance. That part was true, which is precisely why everything that came after cost him so much.
You cannot be destroyed by someone you never loved. Gabriel loved Simone, and for a while, she loved him back. That is the part nobody talks about, because it is the part that makes the rest of it so much harder to explain. They dated for 6 months before she moved in. In the beginning, everything she wanted was reasonable. A nicer area to live, better furniture, weekends away, the life of a couple who had arrived somewhere. Gabriel stretched. He stretched because he loved her and because her happiness felt like his responsibility. Every time he found a way to give her what she wanted, she looked at him the way a man wants to be looked at. And then she wanted more, not because she was ungrateful, but because the ceiling of what she wanted kept rising. Gabriel kept stretching, and somewhere in the stretching, he lost sight of where the floor was.
There is something specific that certain people do to the ones who love them. They do not take a knife to your relationships. They use something slower, something that looks like preference.
Your mother calls too much, Gabriel. Your brother is just negative. Your closest friends, they don't understand what we are building together.
One by one, Simone found reasons why the people in Gabriel's life were problems. And one by one, Gabriel accepted those reasons because he was in love. Love has a particular blindness that is not stupidity, it is devotion that has been turned against itself. His mother noticed first. The calls that used to be answered started going straight to voicemail. His brother stopped being invited. His closest friend, a man he had known since secondary school, faded out of his life so gradually that by the time Gabriel noticed, the friendship was already gone. He told himself this was what growing up looked like. Choosing your partner, building your own world. He told himself Simone was his family now. He did not understand what it would mean to have only one person when that person decided to leave. By the end of 2019, Simone had a vision. a beauty salon in a prime commercial space in East London. She had the concept, the branding, the suppliers. She had everything except the capital to start. She presented it to Gabriel, not as a demand, but as a dream, their dream, an investment in their future. She just needed him to find a way. Gabriel sat with it for 3 weeks. He ran the numbers. He looked at what they had saved. It was not enough. He looked at what he could borrow legitimately. It was not enough. And then he looked at the corporate accounts he managed at work, and he saw a number that was exactly enough. He told himself it was a loan, not theft, a loan. He would replace it by the quarterly audit. He convinced himself so completely that he almost believed it. He transferred the funds. Simone got her salon. She signed the lease and ordered the luxury equipment, building the thing she had always wanted with money that did not belong to either of them. And Gabriel watched her and felt like a man who had finally given his woman everything she deserved. The audit came 6 weeks early. The firm had merged. New management, new oversight, new eyes on every account. Gabriel found out on a Tuesday morning. He was on his 3rd coffee. He was reviewing a routine compliance report. He had not thought about the transfer in 11 days. He had almost stopped waiting for it. And then 2 men he had never seen before walked through the office door, and one of them said his name. Not Mr. Okoye, not Gabriel, just Okoye. The way you say a name when it is already a case number. He did not fight, he did not run. He simply stood up and went with them. Because somewhere underneath all the self-deception, he had always known this moment was coming. He just did not know it would come so soon. The trial lasted 4 months. Gabriel could not afford the barrister he needed. He took what was assigned to him. He was found guilty of misappropriation of company funds. He was sentenced to 18 months. He stood in the dock, heard the sentence, and thought of Simone. He thought, she will wait. She loves me. She knows why I did it. She will wait. Simone visited him twice in the first 3 months. The first visit, she was warm. She held his hand through the glass. She said she was managing. She said the salon was doing well. She said she loved him and would be there when he came out. The second visit, something had changed. A quality in her eyes that Gabriel could not name. A slight distance in the way she held herself, as if she was already somewhere else in her mind, coming to the prison out of obligation rather than love. He told himself he was imagining it. After the second visit, she stopped coming. No letter explaining why, no phone call, just absence. The exact way she had taught him to make other people absent. He wrote to her. Some letters were returned, some were not. He had no one left to call. His mother, his brother, his oldest friend. All the people Simone had helped him quietly remove were no longer there. He sat in his cell and understood for the first time what it means to be completely alone. Not lonely, alone. Lonely is missing people. Alone is having no one to miss you back.
I kept telling myself she would come, that she was just busy, that the salon was demanding, that she loved me. I kept telling myself things until the day I ran out of things to tell myself. And then I just sat with it. 18 months is a long time to sit with something.
Gabriel Okoye served his 18 months in that specific silence. He was released on a Thursday morning in July 2022. He walked out of the gate with a bag that held everything he had left in the world. His first thought was not about the job he had lost, or the career that was gone, or the criminal record that would follow him. His first thought was Simone. He took the bus, the familiar route, through the familiar streets. He walked up the familiar concrete stairs of the building they had lived in together, and he knocked on his own door. He heard movement inside. The lock turned. A man he had never seen before stood in the doorway of Gabriel's flat, looking at him with mild curiosity.
I used to live here.
Oh, I moved in about a year ago.
Gabriel stood there for a long moment. With 18 months of prison, 18 months of waiting, and 18 months of believing sitting squarely on his chest. He went downstairs and asked the neighbors, the woman on the ground floor who had always liked him, and she told him the truth. Simone had left about 4 months after his sentencing. She had sold the furniture, the furniture his money bought, the very pieces bought with the money he went to prison for, and moved out. She had started seeing someone else within months, someone stable, someone whose accounts had never been audited. They had married earlier that year. Gabriel Okoye stood on the pavement outside his old building and did not cry. He had used his tears in the cell. He was empty now. But empty is not the same as finished, and Gabriel Okoye was not finished.
He will not tell you that everything got better immediately. It did not. He slept on a hostel bed for the first 3 months. He sent emails to jobs that never replied. He ate from food banks twice a week, for longer than he will ever tell you. He walked past Simone's salon once, just once. It was open, busy, doing well, built with his money, running beautifully without him. He did not stop, but he slowed down, just for a second, just enough to see that it was full, and that she had named it after herself, and that the lights were warm. And then he kept walking. Because some things you can only survive by refusing to look at them directly. He reached out to his mother. It took 3 attempts before she finally answered. When she did, neither of them spoke for a while. Just the sound of an open phone line carrying 2 people who had missed each other for too long. His brother came around slowly, the way family comes around when enough time has passed, and enough has been understood, and enough has been forgiven, not forgotten, forgiven, which is a different thing entirely. He is fine now, just fine, not rebuilt, not fully arrived, just fine. And fine, after everything he walked through, is not a small thing. Fine is a foundation. And Gabriel Okoye knows better than most people what you can build on a solid foundation when you are patient enough and disciplined enough and willing enough to wait.
There is a particular kind of woman who never asks you to break yourself. She just never stops asking for things that can only be funded by a broken man. And there is a particular kind of man who loves so completely that he will break himself just to see her smile. Gabriel Okoye was that man. He paid for it in 18 months of his life. Everything he owned and every relationship she helped him dismantle before she no longer needed them. She sold his furniture. She sold his chairs, his table, his bed, the things he bought with the money he went to prison for. She sold all of it and started a new life in a room he had never seen. But there is one thing she could not find in that flat. One thing she could not price. One thing she left behind because she did not know it was there. His ability to survive her. Gabriel Okoye is building again, quietly, on a foundation she never knew existed. Because the most valuable thing in that flat was never the furniture, it was the man who bought it. And he walked out of that cell on his own 2 feet, and he is still walking. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you are new here, welcome to Life Stories with the Innocent. We tell the stories that stay with you. If you want to know what happened to Simone, her new marriage, her new husband, and the salon, Tell us in the comments section and share this video. Thank you for watching.